Lesson 69, Person. Catherine, I think that as students learn ancient Greek, it's a good idea to at least be familiar with some basic grammatical terms, basic grammatical concepts. And one of those is what we call person. A verb or a pronoun can be what we call first person, second person, or third person. And the way I explain it is, as we see here in Lesson 69, I know you're an experienced teacher of Latin and Greek, so you may have a different way of explaining it. But for me, the way that seems most logical to me is this. I say that first person verbs and pronouns are the ones that refer to the person doing the talking.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say, I am going to the coffee shop, I'm speaking in the first person because I'm talking about me. I'm talking about myself, who is the person doing the talking. If I talk to you and say you are going to the coffee shop, I'm talking about the person that I'm talking to, or the person to whom I am talking.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that encapsulates second person, if you're referring to the person you're talking to. And then third person is when you're talking about somebody else, he, she, it, they.
Yeah.
You're referring to a person who is being talked about, but is not necessarily there in the conversation. They're off somewhere else. So as we examine our chart here in this lesson, Catherine, we also have the issue of singular and plural. I just described first person as referring to the person doing the talking, right? So if I say I this, I that, I'm referring to myself, but that's the person doing the talking. When you say we, it's kind of weird. It's like one person is talking, but on behalf of a group. When you say we are going to the store, you're actually speaking on behalf of others. You're representing other people.
And in that case, you've kind of included them into a unit of which you are a part and they are a part. And so it's almost, you're speaking on behalf of that unit of you plus of yourself plus others.
So in the first person plural, there's the idea of we, where you're still talking about yourself, but in a group, and you're actually speaking on behalf of others. So that's the difference between first person singular and first person plural. In the second person, it's a bit more clear. When you are talking in the second person singular, you're just talking to one person. But if you're talking to more than one person, you'll need to use second person plural pronouns and verbs. And as you can see, we have the word y'all sort of barging in to the chart.
Just in case our listeners forgot.
In correct English, it's really the word you.
Yeah, you is the more formal way of expressing it.
But in this book, and in all my books, I use the colloquial term y'all as a second person plural pronoun for when you're talking to more than one person. And that way it clarifies things for my readers. In the answer key, they can see the word y'all there, and they know that the verb or pronoun is referring to second person plural. If I translated both singular and plural with the word you, that could be confusing, and it wouldn't be as helpful because the readers would not be able to see from the answer the fact that in the Greek, it's actually plural. So that's done as a study help for my readers.
Right.
So that's the difference there between second person singular and plural. In the third person, the difference between singular and plural is a bit more clear. He, she, it is singular, they is plural. Although sometimes in colloquial English, you'll hear people use the word they as a singular. In this book, I don't really do that just to try to keep everything as clear as possible for beginners who are learning the language. So in this particular book, he, she, and it is singular, they is plural, and I just stick to that in the translations just for clarity.
Yeah.
So Catherine, now that our readers have been introduced to the concept of person and also singular and plural with respect to person, now we can review all our verbs of being in one chart.
Hooray!
Yeah. Yay. Why don't you take us through this chart briefly and let us see how this corresponds to the English with respect to person and number. And again, a quick reminder for our listeners, when I say number, what I'm referring to there is whether something is singular or plural. So when we talk about verbs and pronouns, we can talk about person and number. Person refers to, is it first person, second person, or third person? And then number refers to, is it singular or plural? So for a me, I could say, with respect to person, it's first person. With respect to number, it's singular. So that's how we can use those terms to talk about the different verbs and pronouns. So we have the idea of person and the idea of number. Two good basic grammatical terms to be aware of.
Right. And a lot of times you'll see these two put together. So things like first person singular or second person plural to describe one word, either verb or pronoun.
Right. So if I say to you, Catherine, if I say, tell me the person and number of the verb a me, you would then say, oh, it's first person singular.
Right.
So these are good grammatical terms for our listeners to get familiar with.
Definitely. They'll hear them a lot as they continue their Greek study. So turning to this chart, we get the first person singular, a me, is I am. And then with this chart, we move down the singular column first, and then move over to the plural column and start at the top and go down. So first person singular, a me, I am. Then down to the second person singular, which is a, you are. Again, we're only talking to one person because we're still singular. And then third person singular, estin, he, she, or it is. Now we've gone through the whole singular, we go over to the plural. First person plural is esmen, we are. Second person plural, este, y'all are. Third person plural is esin, they are.
And a quick note, in English, when we translate these verbs, we have to use pronouns. And in English, we have a separate word for the pronoun. For a me, we have the separate word I as the pronoun, and then the word am is the verb.
Mm-hmm.
But in Greek, there is no pronoun here. The pronoun is included in the verb itself. You don't need an extra word to be the pronoun. So that's a crucial difference between Greek and English.
Right.
So in English, the pronoun is always a separate word from the verb. But in ancient Greek, the pronoun is included in the verb. And so it just takes one word to say what would take two words in English. So that's a very important concept for our listeners to remember. Catherine, let's work through a few of these exercises. And as we do, we have three tasks. We need to identify the subject of the sentence, then we need to identify the person, and then we need to identify the number. And when I say person and number, what I mean is it first person, second person, or third person? And when I say the number, what I mean is that particular word singular or plural? In number one, I am hungry, the subject is the word I, and that is referring to the person doing the talking. So that's going to be first person. It's not plural. It's not someone saying, we are hungry. It's singular. It's just I. So the answer to number one is I is the subject, and it's first person singular.
So in number two, in the sentence, you are a nice person, you is a second person pronoun. It's also the subject. Because in the second person, I'm talking about someone and I'm also talking to that person or to those people in the second person. Now we have to figure out if it's singular or plural. Well, in this sentence, you are a nice person indicates there's only one person that I'm talking to because it's a nice person, not you are nice people, which would indicate that it is plural. So here, the context is telling us that you is a second person singular pronoun serving as the subject of the sentence.
Number 3, she is very smart. The subject is the word she. That is a third person pronoun, and it's singular. So we get the verb is. And so the answer is she is the subject, and it's third person singular. Other third person singular pronouns would include he and it.
And then in number 4, in the sentence, we are going to the park, we is the subject. And it's first person plural because so the speaker is talking about himself or herself and other people. And so it's plural and first person. So to answer the question, we is the subject of the sentence and it's first person plural.
Let's do one last exercise. Number 5, y'all have a beautiful home. So here's an example of the second person plural being expressed with the colloquial term y'all. So as soon as you see the word y'all, you know that you're talking to more than one person. So the subject is y'all. It's second person because you're talking to someone, and it's plural because you're talking to more than one person. So the answer to number 5 is y'all is second person plural.